Agile for Humans is brought to you by Audible.com. Get one free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/agile. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, including Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time by Jeff Sutherland, and Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. Visit www.audibletrial.com/agile to enjoy your free audiobook today.
Processes and tools dominate today's Agile discussions, but we are devoted to the individuals and interactions that make it work. From the beginner to the veteran practitioner, we have something for you. Welcome to Agile for Humans.
All right, we are back with another episode of Agile for Humans. We are still in Indianapolis at the AgileIndy Conference. I'm with Kalpesh Shah, a very vibrant and interesting speaker. So I got to meet Kalpesh in New York and really loved, he does this talk called Don't Be a Backlog Lumberjack. It was probably one of the, appeared to be probably the highest rated talk at the event, right?
Oh, I guess so, yeah.
Well, first of all, welcome. I kind of jumped in. I didn't even say hi, right? So Kalpesh, good to see you in Indianapolis. Thanks for doing the show.
Thanks, Ryan.
But yeah, we met in New York at Big Apple Scrum Day.
Yeah.
Had a great time out there. Really neat event.
Oh, yeah. Had a blast.
And I walked in. So as a speaker, you know how this goes. You do your talk. People want to talk. You get caught in the hall. Well, I came into Kalpesh's talk in the kind of mid.
Oh, okay.
And he's animated. He's very passionate, and the crowd is just like on the edge of their seat. And so, how do you do this? Because I think it's an interesting skill. Because when I watch you speak, I think this guy has every single person hanging on his word. Where does that come from?
I think it's pure passion, right? And I think I think it's two things. One is passion for what you do and for the message, but at the same time, I really care for that message, right? It isn't about just another topic. I really want to see that change happen, and it's so it's I'm very passionate about that particular topic, or just to bring that change about. And at the same time, I really care deeply, and I think it just becomes second nature.
Yeah, I mean it's fun to watch, and so I think everyone, like I said, very highly rated talk. I think people enjoyed it. That talk was Backlog Lumberjacks. So at first sound, it's like, well, wait a minute, I thought I was supposed to cut down my backlogs and make them as small as possible. Where are you going with the lumberjack kind of theme, and what problem did you see in the world that you wanted to address?
All right, I think so. That's a very good question. I think you're right. Initially, when I've even seen buttons being given out, where be a backlog lumberjack, and it was like I'm like a machine that's chopping through my backlog, and I was seeing that teams doing that, teams after teams doing just kind of chopping the backlog and just kind of chopping it away. But then I kind of saw that they were just basically going from user story to user story, and without realizing what is this really doing. It's just basically I call it like if I was visualizing a lumberjack, right? It's just saying, put wood here, chop next. Put wood here, chop next, right? And I was seeing that with the teams as well, where there was this backlog or this place for them where put story here, chop next, put story here, chop next, but without having much understanding or saying where did this really come from? What problem is it really solving? And once it's out, what did it really do it? Did we really solve the problem or not? So we were in this loop, or this I kind of call it infinite loop, right? If you're an engineer, so that's what I kind of I think we need to solve this problem. Either we're just basically creating a story factory over here.
Yeah, it's the conundrum of the feature factory.
Absolutely.
Well, we ship that. We check the box. What's the problem?
What's the problem? It's done.
It's done.
It's
the double
done,
right?
Yeah.
But did we get value?
Absolutely.
Did it delight the customer?
Absolutely.
Or do we have defects? All these different things that are outside of the pure act of shipping.
Absolutely.
It's a great topic in that it's asking the team to actually have an awareness outside of itself.
Yes.
So there are business people in our organizations that care about ROI, roadmap, different upsales and all those things. And I think it's great that you're actually bringing those back to the team and saying this is a real thing too.
Yeah, and it was actually an experiment, to be very honest with you, where we kind of looked at it and said, well, what will happen if we opened up the boundaries of the Scrum framework, right? And we exposed the team to the befores and the afters. And first it was just basically, let's give them a sneak peek. And then let's see how they interact with this thing. And you know what, Ryan, we kind of saw that, yes, given the opportunity, they wanted to participate. They wanted to see how the users were using their product. They wanted to see where it was coming from. And yes, they did care about whether it did it or not for them, right? So, yeah.
It's interesting. When I see a team whose morale is low, and I think we've all coached teams where you see that the body posture is kind of slumping and people aren't excited about the work. One of the first questions that I tend to ask is, well, have you seen the customer use the product? And what's amazing is the majority of the time the answer is no.
No, yeah.
And so what we actually will do is exactly what you said. Take that end cap off of Scrum.
Right.
Have the team actually go and see a customer either get delighted, which you hope.
Yeah.
Or not be happy, but give very good feedback. And suddenly the energy of that team just raises up. It's
absolutely.
Like, we have an outcome. We're doing something cool. The customer's happy. Or we have an outcome. The customer's kind of happy. They'd like these 3 things that we didn't think of, had no clue about. Let's go make them happy.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me, at least in my experience, to be a very easy way to get that morale and some of that camaraderie and that excitement about the work back.
Yeah, absolutely. And you what they are then able to contribute in a very educated manner in the whole prioritization exercise. So if the product owner brought something to the table, they are coming to the table with an intellectual debate on why is it that important? What problem have you seen? Because when I was there, I saw this, and you need to solve this problem. So it really becomes, they're now participating in that value conversation, prioritization by value, right?
Sure.
But you kind of mentioned where we take the teams and show them what's really happening. I know some of the organizations which have intentionally built time for engineers or team members to see the way the users are using their product. I'll give you an example, the concept I call this is user exposure hours. So I basically always say is that every 4 hours every 4 weeks you should spend time observing the users, right? I know. I believe Zappos has this concept where once a month their engineers listen to a customer, or actually answer customer service calls or respond to customer service emails, because that's where they really get the feeling of the connection with the users. And I know Intuit has this program called Follow Me Home, and where they actually take the engineers to the home of some of their actual users they have solicited to kind of just sit there and watch the user actually using their product in their environment. And let me tell you, that's very enlightening for them.
Yeah, it's what we're all about too, right? It's these short feedback loops, getting the information about your product. But it's amazing that we're, and I've seen this too. So it's not a knock on any one thing, or it's just a general observation that this is still not happening.
It is, yeah.
Even though we're agile, right, or we're following a process, or we're trying to be agile, we're doing, being, thinking, whatever you want to call it, but we're not getting rapid feedback from a customer.
Right, and because you know what, it's going to affect our velocity. That's the question that I hear.
We can't. We don't have time to talk to the customer.
Exactly. We don't have I need to ship all this stuff. You don't have the time to do that. And my answer to that is just for spending that 4 hours, you're going to get 40 hours worth of saving.
Sure.
Because then they will really know what problem to solve for. Once an engineer has actually seen the problem the customer is facing, that team member is not going to ask for acceptance criteria, because that person has actually experienced the problem that the customer was having, right? And they know how to basically go about it, right? The conversation wouldn't be about acceptance criteria. The conversation would be about, this is how we should solve this problem.
Well, it's interesting. I was able to talk to Josh Karyevsky before he took off from AgileIndy, and he actually, the nomenclature around his story, he shifted it a little bit. So he actually calls a story, it's now a problem to be solved.
Problem to be solved. That's fantastic.
And I think that kind of language feeds directly into your point that it's no longer some talk about a mythical thing.
Right.
This is a real problem that we have validated.
Yes.
Like, we can call it a problem because we know the customer has either shown us that it's a problem or we observe them having trouble.
Absolutely.
And I think that just shifting that mindset a little bit, or that nomenclature around it, now all of a sudden it's inherent.
Absolutely.
To actually go see the customer.
Go see, and I'll tell you, and I always say this, that do you know what's the best form of communication? And it's not written, it's not verbal. Experience is the best form of communication.
Sure.
If they experience that problem, if you walk a mile in their shoes, trust me, you will not be asking for user story or acceptance criteria. You're going to go back to your desk and actually try to solve that problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how often, do we find that even as coaches,
right,
we're reluctant to eat our own dog food?
Yeah.
Right. And so why should it be any different for teams where they know the practice, they know what could be done to help identify the problem, but they don't. But then you put them in another person's shoes, you give them that empathy for the person that they're trying to solve that problem for, and suddenly creativity and innovation flows. So
absolutely,
it's very powerful talk. If you have a chance to see Kalpesh give his Lumberjack talk, I highly recommend it. I think you're going to be in Columbus.
Yes, for Path to Agility, yes.
Yep. Are you giving the Lumberjack talk?
Well, it's actually it's on the similar line. It's outcome over output, how to take your team to the next level of awesome.
Perfect.
And I'm actually sharing a case study over there where we experimented, where we opened up the boundaries of Scrum framework and we exposed them to before and after, and how the team dynamics completely changed, right? How the motivation completely changed, and these were like 12 Scrum teams. There were Scrum and we basically said let's open up the boundaries and see what happens. And so I'm sharing the findings in that talk.
Very cool. So it sounds like it's right along the same lines with some real world case study information. So I think that's going to be fascinating. I know a lot of Agile for Humans listeners will be at Path to Agility.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing them over there.
I hope that all of you will check out Kalpesh's talk. I will be in the room as long as we're not scheduled at the same time.
I hope so.
So I hope one of these times we're actually not like counter scheduled. But the Lumberjack talk, or the output over outcome, that whole discussion is fascinating, and I think you do it very well.
Thank you.
Here at AgileIndy, you brought forward another idea. Can you go into that just a little bit?
Absolutely. I brought a cool new technique called Standup Poker.
Standup Poker.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that was basically where the challenge was, like, I was going to stand-ups after stand-ups, and the teams were kind of going around, right? Just basically just blurting their updates, no impediments, just kind of like next. It's just another thing that we do, right? And so the whole goal was like, I just want to quickly blurt my updates and go back to my desk. Can I please do that, right? So you're off my back. And it was just another checkbox. We did it, and we were losing an opportunity of such a fantastic gathering in the morning to kind of plan our day. So it was basically just sending into a status update and not like planning for the day, right? So I was in one of the stand-ups, and they just kind of went through their updates, and they were about to leave, saying that we're done in 7 minutes. We're so agile that we're done in 7 minutes. We don't even need 15 minutes, right? Somehow that speed was a gauge of their agility. So I said, can we pause for a minute and I asked, well, how confident are you guys that you guys will meet your sprint goal by the end of the sprint? And can you give me like a fist of 5 or a 0 to 5, right? Sure. And then it became really awkward in the room, and everybody started looking at each other. And do you know what the question would be on their mind? What's our sprint goal?
Oh no! Oh no!
I know it took a bunch of stories, but what is our sprint goal? So my question was, what are you guys sprinting towards, right?
Oh, no.
And somehow the Scrum Master, right, he got freaked out a little bit, and he said, like, stop! Yesterday I was sharing a cartoon. It's like, I summoned the power of my certification. I am a CSM, and this is not one of the 3 questions you ask in a stand-up. And I said, like, calm down, buddy. I'm friends with Agile Police.
Summon the power of my CSM.
CSM.
That's good.
This was not, this is not one of the 3 questions you ask in a stand-up. I said, yeah, that's fine. Let's just. So what do you guys think? And it's like, well, what's our sprint goal? Well, I said, for right now, let's just say that you have to finish all the stories you signed up for, right? Sure. Because they're just so disconnected, and that was another thing. Like, it's so disconnected, right? The stories that you picked up. So they gave their like, okay, well, I said, well, okay, so they're like, well, what's a 5? Well, I said 5 is basically you'll be done in time for happy hour, right? 4 would be like, I'm kind of liking where it's going, but we need to pick up a pace. 3 is like, we need to like do seriously something about this thing, right? We gotta drop a story or 2 or something, right? 2 would be like, now we're in really trouble. We need to really cut our stories down. 1 was like, we have no clue what we're doing, and we'll be lucky if anything gets done. And 0 would be like, just cancel the sprint and call the Agile shamans because our sprint commitment goals need to be exercised.
So let me see if I can guess. You did not get higher than a 2.
So you bring a very interesting point. So there was a category of team members who were high, and then there was a category of team members who were low. You want to guess which would be high and which would be low?
Devs were high, testers were low.
Right on the money, absolutely, right? Because, and when you kind of went around and said, like, okay, you guys are showing like a 4 or 5, right? Why? It's like, well, I'll be done with my task by the end of the sprint.
Yeah.
I'll be done with my story. I'll be done with my tasks. And so I'm like, yeah, we'll be. And then the QA guy is looking at them, it's like, well, you are, but have you thought of me?
Uh-oh.
I will get everything at the tail end. You give me a second last day of the sprint, and then I'm basically rushing through this thing, and this thing never gets done. Either I'm rushed or things get carried over, right? And we never get stuff done that way, right? And so it was like, so it completely shifted their mentality from I will get my task done to we will get to this finish line, right? So
sure.
So once the confidence were given out, we said, well, why do you feel a 3? Why do you feel a 4? Why do you feel a 2? Then I said, well, let's facilitate a conversation of what does it take? We are at an aggregate 3 right now. How can we get to a 5 by tomorrow? What should we do today to go from a 3 to a 5? And then the team automatically started like planning it out. Okay, you know what? I'm working on 3 stories right now, but this one is really close. I'll give this to you for testing by noon. How is that, right? Nice. So at least can we kind of get the ball rolling? And so it kind of started that conversation. So from update, it went to like planning for their day. But planning not just for the day, planning to win, planning to finish that sprint goal, right? Nice. And that was very like, wow, I think something really magical just happened, right? And it was very easy. I mean, it wasn't about like looking at a burn down chart or updating our task to know where we are at. It was just simple gut feel, because that's all you can get. You could be updating your tasks every single day and accurately, and it still wouldn't be a right gauge of like, will we make it? Well, I'm not sure. Things could blow up.
Yeah, there's always the unknown out there.
Exactly, right? So this was, and that's how Standup Poker came about, right? So there's like, oh, this is actually a really cool way of doing it, and everybody gets to talk. And I always ask this, like, in the audience, I ask, like, because I actually make them do Standup Poker, and I ask them, like, what's your aha moment? And one of the things that really consistently has been called out is like, you know what, this is an excellent way for even introverts to kind of call their voice out.
Sure. Right,
and it's kind of a level playing field. Like the card gives a voice to everybody, right? So that the rock stars of the team or the alphas of the team can't like overpower. Like, no, I have a voice and I feel it too, yeah. Right? And this is the reason why, right? And it can really ground the team. So it's a fantastic technique to kind of make your stand-up more engaging but more valuable. And one of the things also, it's also like an impromptu retrospective if you look at it. Right, where the team is like, rather than waiting for retrospective, saying, okay, yeah, you know what, I got stories really late in this sprint and I couldn't really test it, we should do it better next time. Rather than that, we're like, well, let's just do it today. How are we going to get better today? Rather than waiting for that retrospective.
Yeah, it's a very powerful practice. I know that even in the retrospective world, people they're playing around with the idea of continual retros, where every day you put a post-it above or below the line.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually where things will shift. It's great that you're bringing that to the stand-up.
Yeah.
And actually incorporating the sprinkle, which I think they did add the 4th question in the 2016 update.
Oh, they did, huh?
So I think they actually do ask some question around, is the sprint goal in jeopardy, or are we going to get it? I think it's a good addition, but I think the idea that the introvert has the card.
Yeah.
So perhaps you have the 10x developer,
right,
who is always, everything's a 5 because I will save the day, and whatever that mentality is. We have that tester that can throw the 1 and say, no, your stuff's buggy as all get out, and I fix it all in the last 2 days, and that's why we ship. That's a rich, that conversation is probably not a good one. But the fact that you can actually bring everyone to the table, everyone gets a card, everyone gets a vote, no card goes over another, and it's a very democratic way to manage.
Absolutely, I like that. That's a very good way of saying, yeah, absolutely, it is, right? And it makes it very engaging, too. It's not like, well, did you update your task yesterday? Oh yeah, you know what? But what do we really feel today? But it's also like a good feeling of like, like really, where does everybody else feel where they are, right? We're working on the same thing. But even like, what, and we kind of started seeing some behavior changes after that. So whenever the teams were like then going into sprint planning, the conversation wasn't starting with, well, what stories are we bringing in? It started with sprint goal.
Yep.
Well, what are we really trying to accomplish this sprint? Rather than asking that question to product owners, saying that, well, these are like 7 disconnected stories, right? How is it really going towards a particular value, right? So the conversation really shifted, and then they were like, how do we commit to win, right? It's now we don't commit individually, saying like, well, I'll be done with my stuff, I think I'll be good. No, now I really have to think that we all will be reaching that finish line together.
Yeah, it's really hard to be collaborative when every person takes their one task back to their cubicle and just work on it for 2 weeks and then try to ship it at the end.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, basically what we've done is, it's like the morning keynote where we're continuing to do the same old things just with a new set of practices and words.
Exactly.
I think that's just such a great point to make. And it's too common.
It is.
I mean, it really is. We've talked on past podcast episodes where it's the difference between a golf team and a basketball team. Right. A golf team, you play your own ball, and you're really just trying to get a low score, and then they add it up, and your team, win, lose, or draw. It was an individual effort each way. Right. Basketball team, it's 5 people of varying skills, abilities, heights, all of those things, and if they don't play well together, it's going to be a losing team.
That's a fantastic analogy. Yeah, that's actually good.
Well,
I'm going to steal that one.
You can have it. I'm sure I stole it from someone else, but. What I like about these practices, whether it's the Backlog Lumberjack, the outcomes over the output, or even the Standup Poker, is that I feel like whenever you're talking about these practices, it's really trying to get that collaboration back.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great part of your practice, and I really appreciate you sharing that with the Agile for Humans audience. So. Yeah. We are coming up to that 20-minute time box.
They can learn more at standuppoker.com.
Well, that's where we're going right now.
Yeah.
So the last part of every show is an opportunity for you to get anything you want in front of the listener.
Right.
So I'm sure you want to continue the conversation with them. So how they can reach you on Twitter, LinkedIn, any websites, anything you'd like to share, would love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for Standup Poker, I made it very easy. It's standuppoker.com, right? You guys can go there to download the poker cards, the presentation that I give. You can feel free to do that at your own user groups or your own meetups or your community of practice. Do that. I will make it very freely available. It's free for everybody. I tweet pretty regularly at Agile Bright Spot. So that's my handle, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So there are all different ways to reach out to me.
So I'll get links to all of those resources in the show notes.
Absolutely.
We'll make sure the listeners have every opportunity to check it out. I highly recommend it, and if you are at Path, I would go see Kalpesh, as long as he's not conflicting with my talk. No. Actually, go see him anyways. I'm all over the country this year. You can catch me at another one. I'm sure you are too, though.
Yes, I am.
We keep bumping into each other, but it's great to see you again. Yeah. I really appreciate you doing the show.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate the opportunity, and good luck to your audience.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Agile for Humans. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop us a question on Twitter @AgileForHumans or visit agileforhumans.com.